intended to cover inflammation and repair. And this is one of the repeat question. What is the sequence of event that occurs in acute inflammation? Okay, so this is very important. So what is the first thing to occur in acute inflammation? It is always transient vasoconstriction, which is a reflex mechanism. This is followed by vasodilatation. Okay, so vasodilatation is caused by histamine. This is followed by increased vascular permeability, hallmark of inflammation. Okay, so what is the hallmark of acute inflammation? Hallmark of acute inflammation is increased vascular permeability. So hallmark of acute vascular inflammation is increased vascular permeability. Okay, so remember that is the hallmark. Okay, and what is the easiest or most common way of increased vascular permeability? Contraction of the endothelial cells. Okay, so contraction of the endothelial cells is the most common mechanism of increased vascular permeability. Remember again, histamine is responsible for this. Okay, that's okay. And remember, so what is the most common mechanism? Contraction of the endothelial cells. Okay, contraction of the endothelial cells. Okay, and because it is contraction, this mechanism is immediate to start and it is very short lived. So this is called as immediate transient response. So what is this called? Immediate transient response. Okay, so this should be very clear. Now once the permeability is increased and the fluid goes out, the speed of the blood slows down. So this is followed by stasis. Okay, so that is what happens. Another question that they ask you is, in which vessels do you see vasodilatation? So remember, vasodilatation is always seen in arterioles, so that more blood can come to the site of injury. So that is why the tissue becomes red and hot. Okay, whereas increased vascular permeability is seen in venules. Okay, so it is seen in venules. Okay, so that is why the fluid moves out and the speed slows down. Okay, so that is another question that they can ask you. So everybody should be very clear with this. Okay, now once we are clear with this, another thing that you have to remember, what is the sequence in repair? So we have discussed the sequence in acute inflammation. Now let's ask the sequence of repair. That is also FMG recall question. And remember, what is the sequence of repair? In repair, the first cell, as soon as we get injury, the first cell to come into action is platelets. Okay, so platelets are the first cells to come. So first thing that occurs is platelet, that is hemostasis. Okay, so these were the options that were given. So first response is always hemostasis, because platelets have to stop the bleeding. Okay, so that is what you have to remember. Now, second thing is, after platelets have come, the platelets will release certain mediators that will attract neutrophils to come. So within 24 hours, we will get neutrophils in the site. So what is this? Inflammation. So what is the second mechanism? That is inflammation. So neutrophils are going to come. Okay, now once the neutrophils come into action, what is going to happen? After that, these neutrophils are going to replace by macrophages on day 3. Okay, so macrophages are going to come on day 3. So these macrophages are going to start depositing granulation tissue, because they are going to attract extracellular matrix and proliferating blood vessels. Okay, so because the proliferation starts of blood vessels and extracellular matrix, so after inflammation, the next step is always proliferation. So there is proliferating blood vessels, there is proliferating extracellular matrix, they are proliferating macrophages. So all these together is, what is this called as? Granulation tissue. So fourth number is granulation tissue. So remember, high PG can be a simple code to remember if you can't recall the steps. But if you remember the steps, you will never forget it. First is always platelets that come into action, that is hemostasis. The second is always inflammation, that is neutrophils come in 24 hours. Third is always macrophages and proliferating blood vessels. These together form the granulation tissue. Once the granulation tissue is formed, what is going to happen next? Now the wound is going to, granulation tissue is forming, but now you need more collagen to come into action. So you require more extracellular matrix. So what is this called? connective tissue deposition. So this is followed by connective tissue deposition, and your body doesn't want extra connective tissue to be formed. So what will activate? So there are a group of enzymes called as matrix metalloproteinases. Matrix metalloproteinases. Remember that these matrix metalloproteinases will eat up excessive extracellular matrix. So this is what is called remodeling. This is what is called remodeling. So the last two steps are connective tissue deposition and remodeling. Okay, so these are the two steps. So these are the 6 steps of repair which can be asked as a question. So everybody should be very clear with that. So first is platelets, then neutrophils, then macrophages, proliferation, granulation tissue, connective tissue, and remodeling. Remember that very easily. So you can remember high PGCR. Okay, so that can also be a step in which you can remember this. Okay, so that is your repair sequence. So these are about inflammation and repair questions.